You were telling me about, the things that you guys have done that include not just hiring the veteran, but you really get into the whole family element too. In what way? Explain that to us.
Yeah, so it's just not, there's a whole dynamic behind who we are, and that's our family. Our military spouse. My wife has been instrumental in everything that I've done in my career. She's been the driving force. I mentioned how somebody told me to get a master's degree. Somebody told me to get a second with a concentration.
Is the brain's the outfit right
Yeah,
over the ones?
definitely. This is my Sherma, my Sharpa, this is my guide. This is the person that tries and trues me and keeps me corrected and course guided.
So you guys were going through a lot of this together. So you guys were married in the Navy. You married a sailor, which is a big red flag for all women. Like, I don't know, I'm going to have to really question your judgment on things. But you were ride or die with him the whole time. So all the stuff and being a veteran spouse, and then at the same time, the programs, like, didn't you say that even Equinix has a program not just to help recruit veterans, but also will you recruit their spouses?
Yeah, so we have veterans transitioning, veterans, right? They're already in the workforce, right? Then we have transitioning veterans. We have our skill bridge programs, but we have a couple military spouse programs as well. We partner with Hire Our Heroes and the Military Spouse Accelerator pilot program, where they do a 12-week fellowship. That's a brand new program between the Department of Labor and HOH. And
what is that? Walk me through what that looks like.
So basically, you qualify. It's a pilot program right now. Only a select few have been selected to do it. It's a 12-week fellowship. So for like Monday through Thursday, if they get accepted to the company, they come to work for the company. It's not an internship; it's a fellowship. It's two different words, right? Monday through Thursday, 8 to 5, whatever. On Friday, they go to Hire Our Heroes, and they continue to be developed on that side.
Gotcha.
Resume, interviewing, career guidance.
But you get them 4 days a week to teach them
4 days a week, yeah.
Industry.
Right.
And that's the spouse.
That's a military spouse program. And then
cool.
there's military spouse employment partnership, which is can be used with different types of fellowships or internships where there's, no burden to the company per se, like paying them a salary or whatever. But it's basically the military spouse. Okay, we're talking about underrepresentation, right?
Oh,
we're
100%.
talking about protected workers, classes of workers. Well, the military spouse, women in general, right? Women representation is huge across all industries. But military spouse is now 20% or so, plus or minus, whatever the current statistic is. Last I heard, it was 20% underrepresented to their civilian counterparts. So the majority of military spouses are women. We're talking like 80, 90%.
So who's this nice lady sitting next to you?
This is my wife, Rebecca.
How are you doing, Miss Rebecca?
Hi, how are you?
It's good to see you again.
Good to see you.
So what are you learning what this fool's doing and how he's doing it, from his whole passion is on recruiting and helping others?
So specifically with what what they're doing with the women that are married to military men, I can speak for my own experience and that alone. I can't. Each person is individual.
No, we have you speak for them all right now. We're gonna bless
But
that. You're official.
I had to
spokeswoman now.
I had to put my career
Ambassador.
I had to put my career on hold.
For the moves
in the corporate world, I had to put my whole life on hold.
Sure.
I tried to go back to my career once we were established in the next place he was sent to, which was San Diego. And then I realized that it was not worth it financially because we had a little boy.
Kids, yeah.
It was just going to cost too much money to have the kid stay in a facility while I worked.
Yeah.
It just didn't. So there was a sacrifice of having to live a very, very limited life.
Interesting.
Because you only have one spouse working and the other one had to take care of the home, which, brought me to other opportunities, but not in the scope of where I could be making good money. I had to work jobs that I could bring my son with. So I started in the fitness industry.
Sure.
That's how it all, I went full time into that. But in that sense, when you go back and your kids are grown and you decide, okay, I'm going to begin a career now, nobody wants to hire you. You have no skills. You've been a mom. you have no skills. You have the best skills that you could have.
Oh, no kidding.
Leading a household.
Project
Yet
management.
for the corporate world, you have absolutely no skills.
That's garbage, Joe.
And they're like, well, why aren't you working? Or this time, I was raising 3 kids.
So I never realized that. I mean, at Operation Hit, did I cheers with you with your? What are you drinking over there, by the way, lady? What is that?
Tequila.
That's the loudmouth soup here.
Clase Azul.
Reposado. You say it with all the.
Reposado.
There you go.
Reposado.
Salute. When we were at Operation Hit, which was in San Diego,
Yes.
you were there?
Yes, I was there.
And a good buddy of mine that I went to submarine school with, his name's Tim Kearns, Master Chief Kearns. He was there
In San Diego.
Yeah, and his wife Sandy. She's a very direct person, which I really like direct people. And she came up to me and she's like, being a Navy spouse or, being a military spouse is hard, but it's not just because they're deployed all the time and we're on our own. It's for all these other reasons. Yeah. And it revealed for me the first time, I mean, look, being stupid shouldn't be a crime. Like me not being smart should not mean that I'm not a good person. It just means that I have a blind spot and I'm unaware of what you just said. Like even now, like talking about how what we were doing has an impact on the female unit or the spouse that we have, because now they're chasing us as we're kind of evolving in our own career, and it doesn't allow them to kind of flourish or have a rhythm within their own, right? Because that's what we're doing, is building rhythm and just
absolutely.
So I didn't realize that, but it is interesting because you are building. I mean, I think you said it once. You're like, look, I am what I am because of my missus, right? Who pushes me and challenged me and all those things.
Appreciate that. And it's not all me, but part of it, little part.
But there's a big part, and that's the part I think that we're missing, right? That's the part we're talking about on the why it benefits to get the spouse too, is because the spouse is in many cases, like there's a person on my team. I just hired an HR person. That may not seem like a big deal to you, but when we started as a back pocket operation with a spreadsheet and just literally like 3 of us, no clients, and like an idea, right? We never thought we'd arrive to the point where I need a dedicated HR person, because I'm like, now I'm a real company now, right? Mm-hmm. Doesn't that seem weird? I've always had HR consultants that manage it, but now I'm like, no, that's the head of HR. Mm-hmm. We all have to be a little bit more careful. And we needed that. We needed that institutional grown up, but in talking with her, now that she's here, she's revealing all kinds of things to us, educating us like we are children. Like we are literally peasants. And she's explaining stuff to me. I'm like, listen, don't get mad, but I didn't know about that. And I didn't even think about that either. And I'm like, it's not because we don't care. It's not like we're like, those aren't even human beings. Yeah. It was like, I just didn't know the trials and tribulations that take place below the waterline when I'm gone, right? So to that end, I don't think that I've ever really viewed that, where when I was talking to him about some changes we'd make from an HR perspective, HR is like, hey, we have this and this and this. And I was like, no, those people are solid. And he goes, you underestimate how massive of an influence a spouse is to people. Like we could be negotiating, we're good. You go home, and if mama's not happy, then we're going to be negotiating tomorrow again, right? Because there is a big engine under the hood, and that's the big influence, right? And a lot of the strategy that we execute on is sometimes generated or originated from someone else, a strategic partner, a trusted advisor, a partner, right? Mm-hmm. So those are things that we have to find a way to highlight the strength of whatever you helped also create, right? Because none of us had ever arrived where we're at, got here on our own. We did it with it.
I just read the most amazing thing that totally relates to what we're talking about. And it's kind of a joke, but these people go to an alligator farm, and they go into this boat, and this guy, I'm serious, I'm totally throwing something out, and I'm not drunk, but I just
am I being punked? Like, what's happening here?
I gotta tell you this. So this couple are there, they're in the alligator farm. The owner of the farm says, I'll give $10 million to whoever, swims to the other side. And nobody responds. There's a lot of silence. And then all of a sudden this guy, jumps in the water.
Naked.
Nothing happens. He swims to the other side, and he's the winner. And then everybody's celebrating. Then at night he's talking to his wife. He's like, somebody pushed me.
He's like, I had no plans.
Behind every successful man,
there's always someone that pushed him. Look, I credit everybody.
I'm sorry, I just had to, because I read that the other day. So
well, to that end though, we know it, we hear it, but how do you fill that in a blind spot in a document that someone's saying like?
Well, you said something. Sorry to interrupt.
What is it? What I say?
You said something about there's rhythm.
Yeah,
So we keep the rhythm when the husbands are not there.
100%.
So
I'm not going to raise those children. Those are horrible people. Who wants to deal with those kids?
sorry that I interrupted you, but you said
No.
that. So I wanted to reiterate that is the rhythm.
I think that there should actually be a job description for like the things that you do that make it look like you actually. I mean, there is in reality logistics, event planning,
Project management.
Yeah, I mean, like how many things are you doing, including finance management? I mean, I just think that there's. I wasn't aware. I definitely didn't understand or appreciate how much pressure it puts on the military spouse.
Chief people person.
Well, they're the judge, jury, and executioner sometimes. You know, there's a lot, but you have to be able to codify that in a way that you could, that translates into what we do in corporate America, because it does. I mean, we have babysitters now. I mean, I have a lady that, she's from South Africa, and she's my EA, saw me. Have you met with her?
Yeah, she's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
She's like everyone's big sister type of, like she's younger than all of us, I think, but she's always like, but if you think that lady isn't like, she's from South Africa, like they just have, like they'll snap like that type of thing. You could tell when she's serious. You're like, we're all falling in line, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we needed that. We needed that. We needed that dynamic. We didn't realize how much we needed that dynamic until she sat in some meetings and just kind of listened, and then she's bold enough to speak her mind.
Yeah.
And she would slap all of us around verbally if necessary, right? And we're like, interesting. And then we're like, we never designed like an all boys club of some kind, and we were just kind of collecting dudes that we'd play softball with type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then we realized like we need more of that noise, because there's so much. Every time they say something, I'm like, what else did you have to deal with? We had no idea. Like, did you know? Well, you might, because you're a better person than me.
I've been told.
Oh, okay. You
He
seem
wasn't
like-
there, so he couldn't.
I've been told all the
I'm sure you've
things
been
that
told.
have happened.
She's from the Dominican Republic. She told you.
She
She just told you in a language you didn't understand. So,
I actually say it in multiple languages,
Ah.
so you will understand.
The language of love.
yeah. So he's like, I don't speak Spanish by French kiss. So I speak the international language of love fluently. So what else? I mean, it seems like this is a big journey, and you are doing something that is, I just think that there's no greater thing that you could be doing, right? You're in talent acquisition. You're trying to help change people's lives by giving them a new career. And you focus on those that are most near and dear to me. And not that the civilian pukes aren't, because I love them too. I just joke. But I was born and raised in a military environment. I was born and raised on a military base. I've watched all these. I look at the military as a blue collar, very blue collar. People don't go into the military to make money. They do it to make a difference, right?
Yeah.
And that is a meaningful and purposeful way to live your life. I mean, who doesn't want to be rich? Take a number.
Yeah.
But if I have the ability to be rich and be miserable, or be happily surviving and be massively fulfilled with what I'm doing, it's a no-brainer.
Absolutely.
All right. So
Absolutely.
what you get to do is you went to the largest data center operator in the world, and you got to recreate platforms, and then open it up to where hopefully now you could educate some of us through this podcast or other. I mean, I imagine you should orate at a lot of different places and talk about the changes you guys are making, because there's groups like us that will turn that into a line of business that we use to generate revenue. Because in the service industry like us, the primary line of business we use to generate revenue is humans.
Yeah.
So we have to invest everything we can into mentoring and growing and developing them, or do you not manage your facilities if you're a data center owner operator? Do you not do the maintenance on them? Do you not make sure your team's proficient? I mean, what would happen? You would lose your clients. So would we if we weren't investing into our team.
Right.
We'll never be good enough, and we'll never do good enough, and we'll never respond fast enough, but we will just keep failing forward every day, one step closer, until eventually we hit a magnitude of output and productivity that where we meet a standard that we can sit around you guys and expand on that with new programs. But for some of us, I mean, you're not going to get ahead if you can't get even, right? So we have to start at the basics and then plagiarize a little bit out of the playbooks that you guys have written. You big shops that have had, how many DoD skill bridges did you have in year 2? 80 something, and you converted 63%?
Yeah, 80, 81, 63.
ridiculous.
We're currently at 28 skill bridgers year to date.
So think about this. That's how many veteran souls do you think you've changed? And then you may not think that's big, but how many of your competitors have changed the souls of veterans intentionally like that, deliberately like that? Not as a byproduct or a ripple effect of another decision they gave them, just by simply giving them a job. That's not enough.
Right.
Like, you guys are creating programs that make it easier for them to discover you and find you. Plus, you're really focused on the development and training of them.
Yeah.
Why
It
do
should
you-
be countless numbers.
Well, there'll never be enough.
Yeah.
But why did you arrive at that as being so important?
So me personally, speaking from my experience and my background and coming as a transitioning service member, like, and a lot of people say the same thing. They didn't have these programs. Like in 2007, when I got off active duty, didn't have these programs.
There was nothing like that.
I don't remember hearing anything about it.
The fact that I even made it into this industry is a miracle, right?
Yeah.
I got lucky. Right place, right time, right? How many people aren't lucky like that?
Tons.
I hear all the time, and I'm sorry
Unlucky.
to interrupt this, but I hear all the time a lot of people that have been in the military that have said, I get out of the military and they think I have no skills. They think I have no.
Well, if you're in the Army, that makes sense, right? But or maybe the Marine Corps too. But
Air Force, definitely.
I don't even know what they
I've
do.
met
They're
a
in the Department of Transportation.
Within the scope of, I'm in real estate and I do relocations for military. I've met a lot of people that have, very, very talented people, very skilled people, and they've had quite a hard time after getting out of the military to get jobs. And
So
in the
that needs to
corporate
be
world.
fixed. How do we fix that?
Absolutely.
How do we fix that?
I think each person should be individually looked up. I mean, I know that that's what you guys do, but not just through a resume. I don't know if there's a way.
Well, I mean, resumes are such a necessary evil, but LinkedIn, I mean, sometimes referrals are all I need. If someone that is going to put their own professional equity on the line to me and tell me that someone is good enough,
Absolutely. Recommendations is important.
those are the best. I mean, like, you're going to lay yourself out with your own street cred and put that at risk over the name of this other person. Well, if you're smart, you know that you won't do that often. So if it's someone you're going to do it for, then if you're going to take the risk, then I would. But if you're not going to take that risk, then why would you ask me to?
Right.
Every time someone's like, hey, I want to introduce you to someone, I'm like, would you hire them? They're like, well, and I was like, well, don't ask me to if you won't.
Yeah.
Right. And
Right.
and I think that what we need is a brighter light within that collective. I think guys like you in the position that you're in can go and you can create an orbit around yourself to where more veterans can hear those things because they just don't know, right? And the only thing I could offer you is a platform like this or a conference that we host or something to where you can get that word out about how we want to help.
There's no one answer, though. There's no one answer.
No silver bullet to
This is a
absolutely,
piece
there's
of
no.
it.
Mhm.
I think this is one piece of that. Knowledge. Like G.I. Joe said it best. Like at the end of every show on Saturday morning, he said, "Knowledge.
Knowing's half the battle."
Knowing's half the battle." Right.
Yep.
So educating people, educating those who don't know, or indifference is huge. So you have a misunderstanding, a drawback. So I can understand how you know little or nothing about this. Let me educate you a little bit about that, and explain to you why this person could bring more to you than this. Unconscious bias. I mean, all the little cliches and the the taglines that exist today. Unconscious bias. Let's not look at the person as being from the Army or the Air Force as opposed to the Navy. Joke, but let's look at all the things.
I joke about all that. I joke about that because I have a brother in every branch, and I just grew up as the youngest, so I've been getting shit on for everything about being in the Navy. Like when that drag queen Navy stuff came out, like my phone battery would die by noon for 2 straight days. My phone was getting destroyed.
In
But
the
did it-
Navy.
There was a limitless amount of people.
But the Army had like
It
dogs
doesn't matter.
or something like that.
We
didn't
brought
they?
this on ourselves. Like that was.
The Army had the man that dressed like a dog for a sex fetish and used to bark. Did you see that?
Listen, I'm not up to date on any of my social media, but I'll tell you, I didn't even know about all this
Oh,
stuff
he had a
until
social
my
media.
phone I would get so many text messages and my phone would just be like, it would nonstop until my battery would die.
But I think that's the point. Like, our community is no different than the rest of the people out there. We're just a little more specialized.
Our community being
The
data center?
military.
Oh, military.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that makes us different is, I think that the military strips you down and builds you up so they could teach you to have discipline and have internal motivation.
And every man should go through that.
I do
And
think
woman.
that there's a lot of value in that. And that's why you have citizen soldier states like Israel and stuff to where everybody has to just join and there's value.
I
It's
believe in
shared
that.
suffering. My thing is that pressure testing, that we got in the military, that allowed us to not only not need external motivation some days, it also meant that some days external motivation couldn't stop us, like on the negative side. Like someone tells me I can't do it. I have very rarely, but I have a very round table management team, and any one of these people on my management team could probably lead this entire team too, right?
That's important.
It's leaders amongst leaders, and
Right.
it's very intimidating to stand in front of the people that I have to kind of be in charge of sometimes because I have a lot of combat infantry, a lot of stoic men. I have former bodybuilder. I mean, like these are
Testosterone
dudes,
central.
and they're all bigger, smarter, tougher, faster than me.
But you never want to be the smartest person in the room.
Well, I don't have to have that problem. I've never had to worry about that ever.
Good.
Right. So, but
on.
these people are really smart, and I have to be ready, to lead them. And I think that their expectation of me is to where there's an element in which I have to externally motivate them because that's normal. But there's a big part where I'm expecting them to be driven themselves. Like it's an untenable business model if they're relying on me to influence them to be for our business to be successful. They have to wake up driven. You're either motivated or you're not.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I think the military teaches us to be less dependent on that affirmation, but that doesn't pay dividends to you in a leadership role if you're not giving affirmation. And I learned that through my first 360, how much I literally sucked at that. And I was like, it's unfortunate because I think that the people that I have that work for me walk on water, but I don't say it enough. You can never say that enough, right? But that's a good lesson to learn. That's a fixable problem in leadership, right? But the advantage that I think that I'm taking this back to is I also know that I could sit around and I have a strong leadership team. If all of them are rooting against me, I won't overrule them, but I'm ready to challenge them still, right? And they're willing to challenge me. And you have to have that. You have to be comfortable speaking truth to power. And I think the military teaches that too, right? Because that hierarchy and that chain of command is really important, but you're out of your mind if you think that I haven't challenged someone that I worked for. And I'm coached to do that in the military. We should have a high standard for who we put our life on the line for. It shouldn't just be given away, right? So if you want me to go do what you tell me to do, you have to do what I expect to as a leader. And that's how I get challenged from my guys. Like, I don't get to run around like a tyrant. Trust me, those people don't tolerate those things. So I think that that's the advantage you're talking about it, but it's the internal motivation versus those that haven't been pressure tested in a selection process like as simple as basic training. Then you don't realize that yelling that you didn't like, they weren't attacking you. They were making you hard because it's only the hammer and the anvil that, steel is what sharpens that steel. And look at you now, right? So things that make us uncomfortable don't mean there aren't things that don't make us better.
Right.
Well, you're important to your leadership team because if you were soft, they wouldn't be sharp.
If you can speak louder into the microphone when you say that, I'm just going to record this one piece for them.
Iron sharpens iron.
Right.
I'm joking.
It has to be hard
Yeah,
iron.
these guys are solid. I mean, all the people, but even the ladies now, even my EA, she has a huge voice, and we listen to her. And we just had an HR lady that just joined us, and there's another lady. There's two ladies on our team that we're looking to promote up into the leadership side of it because they don't give a shit about like. We hired a lady out of the Navy that is in charge of our marketing. Like, she's our marketing coordinator. Never met her before. She doesn't give a shit who I am or what my title is of any kind, nor should she. This lady will be like, "Hey, just settle down, princess," and I'll, and that's how she talks to me like anybody else. And I'm like, But I want that. I want those people that aren't gonna like. They should be able to all have a voice, just like anybody else. You know what I'm saying? And I want my daughter to be able to be like that, right? So it's good because now we are getting this injection of all this, and they're good people. They're not like trying to tear us apart because of things that we don't do or don't say right or things we miss. They just know that we're idiots and they're going to teach us. Like, you can't get mad at kids for making mistakes when they weren't born with the answers, and we're just bigger kids, right? So there's things that we should know, but that's why we're hiring people to fix those blind spots, right?
Yeah.
But we've learned, I think the military is what taught us that we don't have to be right. We should have to be better. So go get the right people that help us be better.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know? Do we agree?
Yeah, totally. And you bring all this knowledge and experience and this tested experience. You have that ability to pass that down, and that's what's missing, in my opinion, today is that pass down, right? As a chief, right?
I had great chiefs. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I have amazing chiefs.
As a chief, to be tried and true, you have to go around learning all the knowledge of everybody on the boat, right? You have a charge book, right? A book that you would pass to the other people, regardless if they're chiefs or not, to spew their knowledge upon your charge book entry.
Interesting.
You're now learning every piece of the responsibilities that make that ship go, right?
Yeah, you had to. I mean, even our cooks on submarines knew every part. They could fire a torpedo type of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's highly important. So your leadership has to be passed down, and based on your leadership allows your people to respond and act the way that you would, because you're functionally, in my opinion, you've created that environment that foster that the camaraderie, that support, that your EA.
It's a page out of the playbook of the military. It's left seat, right seat, cockpit training.
Yeah.
Get in the right seat. When you're ready, we'll move you.
Yeah.
And like everybody that comes to our team, like that lady I was just telling you about, her name's Marley. And like your job or your goal one day should be, like Joe Pinzon on my team, who's the chief strategy officer, former Army guy. That guy's lights out. One of the best hires I've ever had in my entire career, and has taught me more in the last, 3 months than I probably learned in the last 3 years on certain aspects of shit, because he's from the outside looking in, right? And I've been sitting here looking out. Having people with ambition, and then having a mindset in which, like, you're not going to be in this role forever. So start training the person below you,
Mm-hmm.
and start learning from the person above you.
Yeah.
And it should be dynamic.
Corporate world doesn't work like that.
Well,
That's a problem in the corporate world.
but that's why we have an advantage. It's a paramilitary type culture. It's that culture, like the military, and first responders have the same thing. First responders are doing the same thing, right? They're like, hey, and they have a hierarchy with a chain of command, and they're like, all right, here I am. I made it to this role. Time to start teaching my replacement while I'm learning how to replace my, position in 2 or 3 years from now. And it takes time, right? And we have the patience to do that. That's one of the things the military also offers us. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Listen, what else is going on over there at Equinix? Not from a, we're not asking the questions on what you're doing as a strategy, as a business, but what are you guys doing to change souls and lives over there? Because I think that this is a good sadly, it's a good, well-kept secret, right? I didn't know some of the things you were doing until we're having these conversations. I'm like, bro, we have to broadcast that, and we have to go help others like ourselves get into that program too, so that the chorus sings louder than the soloist. So no matter how great you're doing it, think about the impact that you could lead the rest of us through.
Yeah.
That part that you're saying that doesn't exist anymore, that's you. So
Yeah.
teach us, and let us go teach others, and you continue to grow and mentor. But how do we go turn more of these groups on to have? This is an industry that not only values veterans, but they need them.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you help us create that force multiplier, instead of, not that you're an individual contributor, but you have the ability to be the Pied Piper to get all of us to fall in line and figure out how to take a page out of that playbook to some extent. And that doesn't compete against you, because we have 200,000 people leaving the military every month. There's more than your fair share of those people to get. And even the ones that you harvest yourself and don't have the right opportunity for, or that's not the right time for, if you don't keep in touch with them, put them into the system so someone else could help them. It's about helping save these people by giving them a good job.
Yeah.
Right.
I wish I could take as much credit as you're giving me. Literally, we just do as much as we can. Honestly, probably the majority of all corporations out there, their military recruiting teams are very small.
They don't. I've noticed that they are there just for the optics. They don't give a shit about veterans. There are groups that literally do not give a shit about veterans, and they reach out to us, and they want to, me too. And I won't name anybody name. I won't, because I'll never do that. But I'll tell you, like, you discover a lot about people when they are like, hey, we want to have this and we're into these things too. And you're like, cool, this is how it is. And this is how your hands get dirty doing it. But it's worth it. Trust me. This is, I mean, it's not every day you get to go change a soul. Not every day we get to change the life of a human being. Like, not improve their life, change it.
Yeah.
And that's what a real good job can do. A change in career that changes a soul, and it impacts everybody downstream of that, from the spouse and the kids and the harmony. So, like, yeah, man, that's a big duty. It's a huge responsibility. That is another reason why we have grown in the relentless speed that we have, is because we realize it has nothing to do with us. Every time that we take our foot off the gas, it's one less veteran we reach.
Yep.
How selfish of that? How selfish is that? So when we did Operation Hit, you were there.
Yep.
If you were to measure it based on the fundamentals, not a success. But if you measured it based on the community impact and the growth and the momentum, huge success.
It was the first one.
The first one is always the worst.
Right.
But there's a lot of groups that bought in and started leaning in. I mean, you guys were there. Vantage showed up with like 18 people. There's other operators that were there. The next year, it'll be great. But I'll say this. If you wanted to compare what Operation Hit was for us versus my first year of DCAC, Operation Hit was a greater success than DCAC's year one. And I measured Hit from two metrics: souls we've touched, and did it make a profit or a loss, right? And we were willing to eat the first one, because if not us, then who? Who's going to lay out and make the risk of making those changes?
So I don't look at San Diego Hit as a failure in any way, shape, or form, because if you have 100,000 people at DCAC, right, or you have
1,000, yep.
1,000.
Let's have 1,000. I wish I was
Okay.
that big.
Let's say you had 1,000 people there,
Yeah.
or you do have 1,000 people,
Yeah.
and you had 100 people at Hit. Was the impact bigger at Hit because you had more time to spend with the people that were there?
That was a benefit.
Yeah, that to me is way. If I could have a room full of 5 people, my first year in Skillbridge, Equinix's first year in Skillbridge, 6 of the 9 people are full-time employees now. To me, that's a bigger success.
Yeah, that's huge.
Than 63% of 81.
No, I'm with you.
So that's how I look at it. So my thing is,
I'll never be satisfied with those numbers.
Oh,
I know that I goes,
but because you're looking, well, you just said it. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. All right, you're looking at 2 things. You said
souls.
no, but you said from a business perspective.
Oh, profit and loss. Do we
Profit
make
and
money or not?
loss. So that's where we have to look at which is more important. Are we looking at the cost center? Or are we looking at touching the people and making a difference?
Well, it creates the awareness, though. You need both, and it needs to be somewhat of a balance. But the awareness on the first, anything the first time, it's going to be a challenge.
Sure.
So
I'm not embarrassed. My team worked so hard.
But
and
the
everything that was wrong
awareness-
was fixable. Everything that was wrong was fixable.
don't you think that it created an amazing awareness of
I do.
things that, I believe that the military programs in most corporate America, like you said, are for optics. They're not really.
Me too. Yeah.
They're not. They don't spend the money that they spend on, the gente or the blacks. Do we call them blacks, or what do they call them now?
I don't know. They whatever you want.
I'm not trying to be.
Well, the
political
Oh no,
initiatives-
we'll
correct,
edit
but
that out
So
if you don't
the
like it. You're
initiatives, like what she's saying is
they're
like
not in spending money in the initiatives. They're like, we need to hire this amount of people, but there's no interest.
No, I remember there's companies that still have all the Black Lives Matter stickers, under their name, and I'm like, didn't that whole thing, like, not to get
They're
political,
actually
but
bankrupt now.
yeah,
BLM.
But
there
I
was a
think
lot of
I think about
corruption.
all that though. Like it's all relevant. Like so, what makes a difference? So, are you gonna make really good barbecue in a smoker, or are you gonna just grill it? Right? It's a different product,
Sure.
right? So, is your meat really good quality? All those things, other than the ingredients, the physical ingredients that you ingest, makes the product better. So if your organization is extraordinary, you have an extraordinary opportunity with the industry, then you have to find extraordinary people, right? So that's the Equinix, right? That's the magic of Equinix. So if you look at all the values, Navy, honor, courage, and commitment, very similar across the other branches, right? So you have a foundation, you have a value system, you have core values that you strive by, you have a common theme where your group, no matter how they are, you understand what your goal and your mission is, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's the purpose that we talked about. That's the purpose-driven part. I believe if you're just trying to, what we call it? What'd you say? They're just
Awareness.
no. What you said about the companies are doing different things, but
Oh yeah, but they're just mentioning
Virtue
one.
signaling or
Yeah.
just
Versus
optically.
versus it's all
the
about
optics.
Yeah,
all
the
about the
optics.
talk, but no
Yeah.
cigar.
So, but if you're really about the talk, then you're living the life.
Look, I've met companies that were like, man, I wish I could hire more, but I can only hire one. But they embraced the whole process
Yeah.
and they brought
Yeah,
that person
but
in.
But you could hire one and do
Yeah.
that part.
No, I hear you, but it's hard to appreciate that element of success in a way that's any different than the people on the Titanic that were rearranging the furniture right before it went down to make it look the best it's ever been, right? So I'm like, we have to demand that we have a greater impact than what that was. That's a good start, and I'm glad that it wasn't a failure by any means, but it wasn't to the standard of which I will hope to see us get to. But you know what? We have to start from somewhere.
Go straight up.
Yeah.
It's only gonna get better.
Oh, I promise you, it'll have more impact on souls next year, and it'll be more enjoyable. Plus, I mean, we were doing it while raising money for a nonprofit at the same time, another nonprofit called the C4 Foundation, and that's Charles Keating IV, fallen Navy SEAL. That guy has literally bounced my kids off of his knee.
Mm-hmm.
I did triathlons with him, and I couldn't think of a greater purpose, for those things. And he had all of his SEAL team buddies that were down there. His brother's a SEAL. His father was at the event.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we rented McPee's, which is the institutional Navy SEAL bar in Coronado.
Spent many a days there.
Yeah, and how it's not every day that you get to go make a living doing what you love to do while changing the lives of veterans and then getting to hang with some of the coolest people on earth, right? So we have a great job. We have a great industry. Like we come from a great community, and they support each other. And we work in an industry that's thriving. I mean, I challenge you to tell me one industry that's growing more aggressively than ours.
Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't exist.
Doesn't.
So let me do this because it's time to bring this podcast home. And what I want to always do is I always ask people, like when you, not from a talent acquisition perspective, but when you tell people what you do for a living, what do you say? You walk into a stranger, hey, so this is what I do.
People don't understand.
I know that's people don't understand, so that's what we're trying to figure out. We're going to reshape that narrative so it's easy for everybody to understand.
Yeah. I mean,
So
if
we
it's on
tell
a
people.
personal account, like if the wife and I are at a dinner with another couple.
Don't get all
or-
technical on me if
Yeah.
it's this or that.
It's like
But-
I'm in talent acquisition.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. What do you
For
do?
what industry?
Yeah. So have you heard of data centers?
Sure. So what's a data center?
Yeah. So pull your phone out.
Is that what you tell people
Yeah.
to do?
And like pull out your phone. You
So
have
they're
a
like,
smartphone.
Data centers are Pornhub? So
Yeah,
what do they say?
totally, right. I can't confirm nor deny.
Actually, I've been there and I'm a witness. When they're
asking questions?
people don't ask you. People ask you, "What do you do?" That's what
Sure.
people ask you.
And you
What
say
do
I'm in
do?"
talent acquisition, which doesn't even make sense to some people
Right.
too.
I'm in talent acquisitions, and people are like,
He's a hedge fund guy.
some people don't say anything, and some people because they don't understand, and some people are like, what is it? What company do you work for? You know.
Sure.
And then when he says Equinix is the problem, people
the
think,
gym.
"Oh, you work for the gym."
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. You
Oh,
get buff.
Equinix, yeah.
Yeah, I got
Oh
you.
yeah, that's right, the gym. Yeah, and he's like, no. And then that's why he has to ask them to pull
No,
out
it's
their
actually
phone.
the largest data center provider in the world,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I don't think there's anyone bigger than them, is
Yeah.
there?
No, not that I'm
Okay,
aware
so
of.
that's funny that you have to explain that they're not a gym, and that'd be like Starbucks. So no, we make coffee. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, that's how bananas of that comparison it is. But
100%.
that's the problem, is that no one really understands. So that's why we're not finding the talent that we need for this space, and we're at the crisis of we're at the threshold of a labor crisis, no doubt. And we have what's called the silver tsunami coming, which is all the blue hairs. Well, I'm technically I've been in the industry for 20 years, so I'm one of them, right? I mean, you can see the gray. But my thing is a lot of us have been in the industry for 20 years. A lot of us are. I'm not poised to retire. I'm still a child, right? But I have a long way to go. But there's a lot that have been here, and they were here. Like, if you haven't listened to Carrie Getz's podcast, she's talking about. She goes, "I was a part of the greatest apprenticeship known to mankind," and because when the entire industry, the vertical itself was being like the genesis of this space goes back to the first time that we were using email, like AOL, and think about how far back that was, right?
Yeah.
No one knew what to do in this industry, so they were all learning it together. They were just adopting and plagiarizing, methods and means and standards from other industries and saying, this sounds good, we'll try this too. And some broker was like, no, this is on like an industrial this. So everyone was just wadding it together.
Yeah.
And here we are. And we think that we're pretty sophisticated. I feel like in terms of how far we're going to go, we're still like working with like
Diapers.
soup cans,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying, to communicate.
To communicate, yeah.
We haven't even got
The
to
telegraph.
Yeah, so think about like the existential threat of the industry is labor, they say. So you have, this, the Internet of Things, and and then we had, mobile devices, and then you have cloud computing. And I was at a vendor summit for one of the operators last week, and they're like, we expect the AI's initial requirements to be no less than 10x of what cloud was. And cloud was 10x of what enterprise was.
Yeah.
So you're like, this is a recession-proof industry at this pace, based on the adoption that we have of technology.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I would rather be in porn. I think I'd rather be here because there is no porn without data centers.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
jokingly aside,
Yeah.
that's why I'm like, your kid and my kid will have a job one day and 10 years from now that doesn't even exist today, because what technology is going to do to transform society. And I'm optimistic. I think it's not like, first of all, I don't listen to the news and I don't read all the propaganda and social media. I think that we will have in the fifth industrial revolution a more symbiotic relationship with technology that's in harmony with us in a better way. I think that we are smart enough to know, like, we don't want to be totally extinct.
Are we smart
Let's
enough?
throttle back.
Smart enough, maybe, but are we capable?
I think that is to be determined, but it's an optimist thing. I mean, is there a guarantee? No. But I do think that history has proven, like, go back and watch history and find out how many times during the Cold War we were seconds away from nuclear war.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so if people knew that, they would fall asleep much easier knowing that you have AI machines getting unplugged every day because they're running away without, like, we have AI that was created and generated off the best intent of humans, right? What's ChatGPT? It's aggregating data that was already created, right? But what about the dark web?
Yeah.
And what about what that information is used to create another application of AI that it does the same thing as ChatGPT, but it just has a different input volume of data?
Yeah.
How big of an impact will that make in society? I don't know, but I'll tell you this. Without a freaking data center, there is none of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we're sitting in the driver's seat with where we sit.
Yeah.
Let's just find a way to solve for it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's like Iron Man in his Iron Man suit, and he makes the what's his name steals the silver one, and they go against each other.
I like this movie.
Yeah.
I know where you're going at.
Yeah.
I know. I could visualize it. Was it the first one?
Yeah, I think it was the second one. It was after he gets out of the cave, creates Iron Man.
Look,
And-
I'm a Captain America guy, so I was on his side. The whole time.
Totally, I love
I'm just
Captain
saying.
America too. Like,
He's a veteran.
yeah, totally.
stand with
100%. He's I want to be Captain America.
You kind of look like him.
No, I really want to be like the guy out in front and being like, "Let's do this."
You should be.
Let's go. But Elon Musk said he's totally against AI,
Oh, 100%.
but he's creating robots, right? But
Well,
you know what he said? He goes, "You know what's great about AI? I could always unplug the machine."
But that's not everybody, though.
Well,
Like what
there's a lot. I think we can focus on the many ways in which this could destroy us, or we could focus on the ways in which this can make us all
Right.
better. So
And
it's a decision. You just have to figure it out. And I think that evil's got to go, right? So I think in every capacity that we could find it, we'll figure out ways to weed it out. And there's always people that are doing stupid shit, but as long as there's good people, like there's first responders, there's less than 0.5% of the U.S. population that joins the military. again, well, as long as there's those people, we're gonna be fine. There's people that are gonna
We
make
have
a
to
difference.
Yeah.
keep the optimism
You have to.
alive. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So what else? I mean, if people only listen to the last 5 minutes of this podcast, what do you want them to know about you? What do you want them to know about Equinix and what your commitment is to veterans?
I want them to know that our commitment, meaning Equinix, mine, yours, hers, should be the same as everybody else's. Should be the same across any community that's underrepresented. We should support our communities. We should represent the people. We should educate the people. I think every hiring manager needs to be educated across all the types of workforce that is out there and available to them to hire. They should be qualified to an extent, just like in the military. They sent me to a technical school for like a year to fix aircraft and put human beings in to fly, but they sent them to a college and got a degree to fly them. Which is more important? Which is more critical? The pilot or the person maintaining the machine? So I say our education is the most important thing across all minds. And if you want to make a difference in these underrepresented communities, you need to be educated to those communities that you're trying to hire from so that you can understand how to hire the best people for your organization. I'm not saying the military is the best workforce that you hire from,
One of the best.
but you have to be educated.
More likely to pass a drug test on Monday is all I'm saying.
Truth? Truth?
There's talent everywhere. You know, some of my best friends in this space never once set foot on a college campus or served a day in uniform. And it doesn't take anything away from the respect that I have or the commitment they have to us. I have friends that are just as committed to what we do to help veterans as we are. And they didn't have to put on a uniform to do it. And I think that we have to continue to just focus on the fact that there's more of, with those people that didn't serve, we still have more in common with them that are separate. The big thing that separates us is, I don't like calling it the advantage, but I agree with you, it's an advantage. The pressure testing that we had is second to none.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but Uncle Sam does a better job than your mom and dad at teaching you how insignificant you are and how selfless you must be to be successful. I mean, that's all we want to do as parents, is teach our kids to not be pieces of shit and treat others the way they want to be treated and all this thing.
Absolutely.
Uncle Sam just doesn't, they're not perfect, but they're better than the standard homogenous family model because most likely than not, you don't have two parents that agree on the pressure that you want to put on a kid. Uncle Sam is pretty standard across the board.
Yeah.
And that's how you maintain consistency, right? So I think that we learned that we weren't being attacked when people were putting pressure on us. They were actually trying to make us better.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference, is we don't shut down when being attacked. We actually see it as a call to action because they're yelling at us, because if we could do better, then we could help more.
Yeah.
You know, I'd rather be yelled at all day.
I want to say a message to the service member, though, and to the military spouses.
Please.
Is remember your roots. Remember where you've come from, what you've learned, the experiences you had with the places you've been, and how you are better at that moment in time, like now, than when you were in the past. Because all of that trial and tribulation, that barrier of entry that you experienced, that I experienced in 2007, is the opportunity for the rest of, for them to break through, right? So remember, when you're talking to a potential employer, like, don't think you're not qualified. Show them how you're qualified. I may not have that certification, but I have done that in the military this way.
I think that that's something that people like you have to continue to go to these conferences at and explain this to these veterans and coach them. You got to tell them what they need to do. Then you got to tell them what they need to do. And then you got to tell them what you told them you just need to do.
Yeah.
Right. And they need to be conditioned, because that's how we're conditioned in the military to have it pounded into our ear hole. Right. So as you tangentially kind of lay it out there for them to kind of pick up, that is not going to happen. They need to get pounded it into them. So we have to figure out a way to create an omnipresence with that narrative to where it's going to hit them at every angle, right? So it becomes a new reality. Because you're right, that's a great message to send. And if I could package that part up, I would like to send that soundbite off to the fleet and use that as a thing that's like a little commercial. And we can.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't know. And like, think of it like this: as you speak, what would you have had to hear yourself at that age for you to change or pivot what you were already doing? Because we tend to do what we are most comfortable doing.
Yeah.
And to go do what you said in such a simple, broad stroke, how easy it is to do, that takes a lot of courage from someone to be like, this is what everyone else tells me to do. It's a layup and it's the easiest way to do it. This is no guarantees, but there may be a greater upside, but I don't understand how to navigate through this. That's why I'm like, we have to create the infrastructure to where people have the ability to access you.
Yeah.
If they discover what you just said and they have a question, because I'm a caveman, like I have to talk to human beings. There's nothing that you're going to give me or sell me that I don't buy online. You know, I don't buy things without having the ability to ask a few questions, because not everything is there for me to understand. So I'm like, hey man, can we talk? I just have a quick question. It could be a stupid question, but I need that. But these people, we're talking about how they should approach the most important decision in their life, and that is how they reinvent themselves with a brand new career. So I think that we have to find a way for them to not only understand and hear that message, but there has to be an engagement vehicle for them to be able to feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
So that's stuff that hopefully you and the message that you're sending let me help you champion how that happens by providing the platform, and I'll put as much wood behind the arrow as you can.
Yeah.
But you need to help with those things, because you sit at the top of the veteran hiring group with the largest data center provider in the world. With great power comes great responsibility, right? So,
okay,
and we're all here to help.
Spider-Man.
But you understand?
Yeah.
So, like, listen, what else do you want these people to know? Because that's a great message. Do you have a message for anybody else?
The women.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Support your
women, let's
military
hear.
spouses.
How about you, Mama? Do you have any advice? I mean, like you're
For women that
listen. My best buddy is one of my best buddies. I served with Tim Kearns. We were at Operation Hit. He's a Master Chief. He's active duty. Sarah, his wife was there. I've known this lady since they got married, so obviously I've known him forever. He's been in the Navy for years, and the beauty about his wife Sandy is she'll unload both barrels on me right between the eyes. She does not give a shit. And I need that. I'm like, I need to hire you to come around and make sure all of us are doing our jobs right. But my thing is I've never found, like, you want to hear the truth, ask a military wife, and they don't, like, they got sharp elbows as they could talk, because they had to do the heavy lifting for two people, right?
Yeah.
So what is your position on what we're talking about? We haven't seen the ball since kickoff, or how are we doing?
specifically in the hiring.
Do you think that there's anything else that we could be doing to amplify our narrative to have greater impact, and not just the veterans, but the veteran spouses?
Well, I think all the events that you guys are doing are incredible.
How about if we had an advocate, like you're the ambassador, like you and
Ambassador.
Sandy? Now we just signed you up. Maybe we pay you for a little bit of your time, and that's your job to block and tackle for those ladies, because they're not going to listen to me.
Like an ombudsman?
Why would they?
Ombudsman.
Why not?
Yeah.
Like a lead? Like,
Yeah.
would you be willing to do that?
There's definitely a lot of potential in doing stuff like that. Absolutely.
All right. Well, listen, for Operation Hit, all I heard was that your wife just volunteered to be paid for her time proportionally to go help us be the ambassador for the wife. We have to. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Absolutely.
if you're counting on me to do the right thing for the wife part of it, that's not me failing. That's you being, a fool, because I just don't know what to do.
Well, and we have gone through it, so we can pass on what we know.
Knowledge is power.
And help us create opportunities where we could help
Absolutely.
other spouses get hired too.
Absolutely.
I think that's the missing part. That was the biggest blind spot from Hit, where thank God I had Sandy, who she still hates me from taking her husband out the night before he got married. And like, it's not my fault that he gets jazz hands after like 3 pitchers of beers and shit. But like, he made it to his wedding. He had gotten the flu a few hours before it.
A few hours.
And
What?
and she's never really liked me since then. She wants to hate me, but she can't.
He gave her permission to.
But listen, I need that candid feedback. I'm a big fan of that, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, what you guys are like at Operation Hit. She came around and she goes, hey, not bad. Like golf clap, Kirk. She's not bad. What you're missing is the spouse side. Like, that's a big miss.
Yeah.
You must be an idiot. And I was like, thank you. I'm sure there's nicer ways to tell me, but she's 100% right. Like, we
I
were.
shared
think
the
that's
same
going
thing.
to attract a lot more.
It's done. That was the biggest game changer. I mean, like, we will never, it'll be done on a day, which they are encouraged to bring their spouses. So we're not taking them a day off of work and then ask them to be away from their families.
Mm-hmm.
Bring your most significant other with you, and let's help both.
And thinking even beyond that, the woman is going to be able to see things that he might not be able to see
100%.
while everything is happening, and then they're going to have the discussion about it. They're going to go home and they're going to talk about it, and it's going to be it's going to go further. Does that make sense?
1000%. Like
Mhm.
I don't have the capacity to make certain decisions.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. Like I was even at work, I'm like, hey guys, when we talk about what I have to do, like this is the vision side of what we do. And I'll play in that box all day. And then there's all this minutia right here. It seems about like business operation stuff. I don't want to hear about that. But down here on the bottom where the results are, I'd like to stay in that box too. So those are the two boxes that I like to stay in. Keep me away from all the other shit, right? That way I can go do things. Now I'm obviously trivializing these conversations, but do you understand? Like that's how I am. What we do for anything is what we do for everything.
And most men, they need to hear another voice too. After the voices, they need to hear another voice.
So we're partnering with other veteran groups, and there's a lady that runs she's the president of the Talent War Group, which you need to get hooked up with too. The CEO is Mike Sorelli, very famous Navy SEAL. You could catch him on Rogan and stuff. They do a lot for the executive side. So we're very blue collar, right?
Yeah.
We do a lot of downstream. I'm better served taking those that are coming out of the military and are willing to use their hands to reinvent themselves with a new trade. Like me, I had a technical rate like you, came out and put myself through school as a UPS service engineer until I've graduated, right? And that gave me the military allowed me to have credibility with my hands to use that to make a living while I was creating a better platform or a foundation for me to grow a career, right? And that's how we should look at it. We should look at it like that. It's a stepping stone, not a destination. And it's a great place to be from. It's not always the best place to be in certain deployments, right? So, I mean, when you leave, you don't remember the shitty days. You just remember the great things you took away from it, right? So, well, we're going to bring this home now. Is there anything else you want to mention?
Just bring the spouses next time.
What is it?
Bring the spouses next time.
100%. We have to, and we will, and you'll be there. I mean, like, listen. Sorry,
I think there's always
up.
room for improvement, right?
Yeah.
In anything.
Yeah.
There's always an opportunity to do something better, which leads me to the point that my wife tells me. We were having a conversation with our son the other day, and talking about significant others in their lives, and you want somebody in your life, in all levels, that's going to make you greater. It's going to push you to be better, right?
Kick you in the ass and
100%.
Yeah, and I think that's important. So I say that to the spouses and the veterans, and the transitioning service members, and all the people that we're trying to reach with this message is, if it's not better than what you currently have, then it's not good enough.
I think that there's a lot of people that are, they live their lives and trapped in quiet desperation, miserable with what they're doing, but the fear of the unknown is greater than the fear of what they're doing now, so they just stay trapped. Like when I'm around grown-ass people that complain about what they do for a living, it's easy for me to have a liquidation sale on who I have in my life, because I have no time for people that are striving for excellence but tolerating mediocrity within their own life.
Absolutely.
Because if you can't lead yourself, then you're not going to be able to lead others, right?
Right.
So I've never understood that. I've never understood why people I'm like, what are you waiting for? Like, this is an industry that you can literally do anything. You don't have to be smart. You don't have to be fast or tall or strong or good looking, you just have to work hard.
You could have flat feet.
Right.
You could be.
I can
you
tell
got the most beautiful bald head, gray.
I can tell you a story. I remember when Todd was, Equinix reached out to him.
Yeah, it's
found him.
amazing.
They reached out to him, and he showed me the company. I didn't even know.
They're
like,
monsters.
And it's like, but they just want to hire me as a contractor. So how much are they going to pay you? What is it all about? And,
Yeah.
And then he told me, and I'm like, take it.
It's a great opportunity.
Right. Take it. Because I know that it was, it was safe from Gartner to
But he needed that nudge.
completely unsafe. Right.
And that's a little bit of a risk, but it's the right risk, right? So like you need to be able to coach, and you need someone like you with the fortitude at home that knows you well enough. Like there's a million decisions that I'll get paralyzed on, and they could be as simple as like what kind of bottle of wine I need to order. And I'm like, but the other
I'm
decisions,
totally like, I'm just doing it.
But you need that. We need that. There's for every what and why. I mean, that's the whole what and why leadership that makes the yin and the yang, right? You need both of those things. So that's a good balance. It seems like you guys have a great balance. So thanks for giving your voice here too. I'm sorry that
I
we pulled you
appreciate
on
you
last
having me.
minute. I was
Thank
like,
you.
I got an idea.
Thank you.
But we need that. I need that. We need that. The veteran community needs that because we can't just target the veterans. We got to target the spouse.
Yeah.
If you target the spouse, I have a higher likelihood that the rest will follow. Like the veteran's
Absolutely.
going to follow what the spouse says.
Absolutely.
Well, we didn't realize that. But I'll tell you this: we're super coachable.
Yeah.
Thank God it's not illegal to be stupid, right? You're allowed to be
and I don't
wrong
think it's
a lot.
stupid. I think it's just part of the learning curve of the whole thing.
That's the greatest part of the journey. Like he was saying, it's
Yeah.
not a destination.
Right.
Like,
Right.
if not this, then what? I mean, I'm going to be learning from something.
And
I'm
there's
in no
going to be
rush.
another thing you'll discover in the next hit.
Exactly. This is awesome.
So you can train. This is my last thought. You can train for a triathlon, right? You could train for a marathon. Heck, she showed me a thing that could teach you how to do a marathon on, from couch to marathon, right?
Mhm.
But you have to start the marathon. And the only way you start the marathon
It's before the marathon.
is putting that first foot forward across
Yeah,
the
you got to
starting line.
commit to where you're uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yeah. So all I say is, I told my son the other day he's running the New York City Marathon. He says, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I said, you're going to do it by
One step at a
Yeah,
time.
one step in front of the other, and you're
But that's where the
prepared
marathon begins.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people there that are going to be coaching. I mean, like, there's a lot of inspiration and motivation. Did he go on through the community, like fundraising things? Is that how he got in?
Yes.
He's already
doing it.
raised like $2,300.
It's called Healthy Kids
It's awesome.
something.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone, that's a tough marathon to get into unless you're raising a bunch of dough.
Yeah.
But I had a brother that did. I mean, look, that seems like a really fun race, but you will not be lacking affirmation on that
Right.
race. There's going to be someone there every step. Like, you don't want to quit when you have people cheering you on. Like,
Right.
I've been there.
Like I said, I didn't want to quit boot camp because what am I going to go home to as a
Then
failure?
what?
Yeah.
But that's exactly like when those shitty situations always happen, the first thing you have to do is like, why is this happening and what am I supposed to learn? And if
Yeah.
you look at it objectively, then it's not an attack. It's actually there. It made you harder.
And don't
as a
do it alone.
byproduct, you know?
Don't do it alone.
Yeah, I don't think you can. All right, well, listen, this has been awesome. Thanks for coming to Austin and sharing
Yeah.
your story. And I have to assume that there's something here for everybody, right? If they're a veteran, then there's definitely a lot here for them to unpack. If they're a veteran spouse, there's something here for them to unpack. Even maybe got to wait a little bit to the end, but there's something that's there, right? There's also something there for those in this industry that understand, like, hey, man, I could move around. I could do all kinds of things. Maybe this is a company here that I need to go work for. I mean, hopefully there's something here for a little bit of everybody to be inspired by and a call to action for somebody. So last thing for you would be, if people want to reach out to you, how do they connect with you?
Well, LinkedIn's pretty easy.
Are you pretty responsive on that?
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Okay.
Email tfry.
So hold on. How do you spell your last name in case people are Googling it wrong?
So it's Frey.
Okay, so Todd Frey.
Yeah.
F as in Frank,
There you
not
go.
S.
Foxtrot.
Foxtrot Romeo
Stray.
Echo Yankee.
People say
There you go.
stray when
or
you
Frey.
Oh, look, I'm Ophel, which is normally awful. And I'm like, it's Oscar Foxtrot. And I always say that because they're like, OSS. And I'm like, ooh.
No.
But like, I'm at a point in my life where I've never corrected anybody for anything. Like,
Yeah.
I've heard it all. You can mess up.
I know
on
he could. Everybody
Kurt
calls us,
Awful. I'm
Everybody
like, that's
calls us
me.
Frey.
Raphael.
Everybody calls us Frey because that's the way you grammatically pronounce it.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's Fry, and I'm like, I'll just let him say, call me Frey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The E's.
So Todd
sneaky.
Fry. So I have a LinkedIn profile. Email.
Yeah.
tfry at Equinix, EQUINIX.com. Pigeon carrier's fine too.
Yeah.
But
Smoke screen.
smoke screen, yeah.
Listen, it's been awesome to spend some time with both of you. Thanks
Yeah.
for joining the revolution. It's great to see both of you.
Awesome, thank you.